Hello and welcome to ELTECenglish.com. This is a writing task 1 that a student has sent me, and I'll be discussing its correction as well. The student has sent me complete answer, and we'll be discussing its corrections, any mistakes, any changes that the student needs to make. But before coming to the question, let us discuss what should be the strategy for answering this question. What should be the correct strategy to answer this question? Let us go through it. The question is, you need to spend about 4 to 5 minutes analyzing the data and another 15 minutes to write it. So this is the division, about 5 minutes and the 15 minutes. So let us spend about 2 to 3 minutes quickly to jot down some of the important points. The chart below shows the amount of leisure time enjoyed by men and women of different employment status. So just quickly come over here. You can see full-time employment, part-time employment, unemployed, retired, and housewives. So this is the employment status along the x-axis. This is employment status. And here is the number of hours of leisure time along the y-axis. Okay, so here is the y-axis, and this is number of hours of leisure time. So you have to write a report to university lecturer describing the information shown below. Let us quickly analyze it. Now, since this is a bar chart and you have various categories, you have to do two types of comparisons. You have to make comparisons. Let me write over here. You have to make comparisons and find out any major or main features. What are the main features that you can see in this bar chart, as well as comparisons? And this is done in two ways. You can have an intergroup comparison or an intergroup comparison. What exactly is this? Intergroup means within a group. So this is group 1, group 2, group 3, 4, and 5. Okay? And what is the intergroup? You are going to compare different groups, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with each other, and find out what exactly are the comparisons available. Okay? Now, first of all, let us think about intergroup. Among intergroups, you will usually notice that you will have to come for the maximum and the minimum thing. Okay, so what are the maximum and minimum things over here? You can note that among men, maximum are in the unemployed and retired group. They are having the most of the leisure time. So if you are unemployed, this is maximum, and if you are retired, again, you have the maximum time to enjoy among all age groups of men, among all men of different employment status. Among women, the maximum is again in the same group, either those women who are unemployed or those who are retired. They have the same number of hours, leisure time hours available. So this is the maximum among intergroup. Now, what is minimum? Minimum for women is for the employed full-time. So women who are employed full-time, they have the least number of hours for leisure. So this is the first minimum. And among men, there are absolutely no men among housewives. So this group is excluded. Okay? And there are absolutely no men in employed part-time. So usually men are either employed or they're unemployed. If they're employed, that's full-time. That is the assumption, I guess. So among men, this is the group which has the minimum. Okay. Now this is intergroup. Now what about intragroup? You have to write one paragraph on this. Usually intergroup is one paragraph, and you don't have much to write since there's a comparison between different groups. That can be easily accommodated. You have to write another paragraph on intragroup. In that you'll have to write about the student will have to write about 5 sentences, one for each group. 5 sentences comparing men and women in different groups. So group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, make comparison of men and women within these groups. So one is just for men and just for women, that's intergroup. And another is comparison of men and women in each group, that's intergroup. Okay. Now, having said this, there needs to be, what should be the exact structure? So exact structure should be, you need to have an introduction. Introduction is usually a single line, one sentence, and in that one sentence you have to basically mention what exactly is a chart showing, what exactly is the data talking about. Now then you have to mention an overview, an overall statement. What exactly do you see on an overall trend? Now that overall is, in this case, you have to talk about maximum and minimum and the absence of men in these groups. And since there are no intermediates, there is just maximum for men and minimum for men, there is nothing intermediate, that single paragraph on overall should be sufficient for intergroup comparison. Now don't write another paragraph for intergroup comparison for women just for 2 groups. Okay, the data is too little. So within this overall paragraph, talk about the maximum, talk about the minimum, and complete the intergroup thing over here. Okay, the intragroup, you have to write 1 paragraph about it, and that should be enough to answer your question. Okay, now let us come to the student's response and find out where exactly has he made the mistakes. Okay, so this is the student's response. Let us begin reading it. The bar chart compares the total number of leisure time hours per week that males and females had between 88 and 89 in terms of their employment status. Now, an important point to note is that here the years mentioned are 1998 and 99. And so the reading of data is incorrect. So if there is an incorrect data reading, that may severely impact the band score. Okay, so make sure that your data is correctly read and expressed. In terms of their employment status. Now you can't write in terms of employment status. This means that the leisure time is in terms of employment status. That's incorrect. The leisure time is in terms of time. Okay, so you can't say that leisure time is in terms of employment status. You can rewrite it that males and females of different employment status had between 98 and 99. So the right way is that you should mention the object of time 98, 99 at the end of the sentence. Usually the object of time is at the end. So other objects, that is leisure times of different males and females of different employment status had. Now this needs to be before the object of time. Coming to the overall statement, overall men had a greater amount of leisure time in comparison with women in given categories. Now I can't see, alright, men have more leisure time in category 1, 3, and 4, but I can't see any men in 2 and 5. So you can't just say in 5 in all categories. In 3 of the 5 categories, now there are no men over here, and in 2 and 5, but that doesn't mean that men have more leisure time in all categories. So you have to be factually correct. This is factual correction. You have to be factually correct, okay? The same mistake that of 88 and 89. According to statistics, unemployed and retired people enjoyed more number of leisure hours than working people. Okay, they are enjoying more number of this group 3 and 4 is enjoying more hours of leisure time hours than working people. But an equally good observation is that they're enjoying more number of hours than housewives as well. So if you write housewives, that will be a better response. Now, if there is a missing main feature, that will impact your band score. So here, this is an important main feature, okay, that the student missed. Now this is the student has made a right response. This is clearly, this one is an intergroup comparison. Okay. Now he has moved to the intragroup in the next two paragraphs, which is fine. The full-time employed males were among those categories who had least amount of leisure time. The full-time employed males, let us reread, were among those categories who had the least amount of leisure time. What are those categories who had the least amount of leisure time? Now, there are no such categories. The full-time employed males are themselves a category. So they enjoyed, clearly right, they are themselves a category. They are not among those categories. So they enjoyed the least amount of leisure time, about 50 hours per week, and it was about 10 hours more than their female counterparts. Now, the mistake over here is that the student has expressed two different ideas in one sentence. The first idea is that full-time employed males XXX and about 50 hours per week, and second is that it was 10 hours more than their female counterparts. One is comparison, one is the fact. Now, that can be done only by two ways. Either put a full stop over here to express new idea, or put an and. And plays the role of a partial break, and it shows that there is the second idea is forthcoming. Okay, so just put an and don't write still. There's no need of a comma over here. The unemployed and retired males had greatest amount of leisure time, about 80 hours per week. Okay, this is category 3 and category 4, which was doubled as compared to working males. Now, it seems as if this was doubled by somebody. This is passive voice, which is incorrect. Okay, so it was double of leisure time for working males. There is no data about part-time employed males. So he has written this paragraph just on males 1, 3, and 4. The full-time female employees had the least number of leisure hours. Now, the leisure was missing, so you can't simply say least number of hours. This will be a less correct statement. I won't say incorrect, but less correct statement. About 35 hours per week, which was almost one half of the amount of time that unemployed and retired women had. Now, the idea is complete. There's no need of saying which was nearly 70 hours per week, because you have already said, the student has already said, which was one half. Okay, one half. So 35 is one half of what the unemployed and retired women have. So that's obviously 70, and you don't need to write this. Housewives had almost identical number of hours as that of full-time male employees. So this is fine. However, this can be better written by just categorizing intergroup into one and intragroup into others. The student has well written the intergroup, but you will note over here he has just mentioned males in one and females in another. The second big problem is that he has compared males and females over here, then just switched just to males. Okay, so here's a female comparison and then just switch to males. And here's a male comparison with females, and above that it's just females. So it's not clear what exactly the student is trying to do. Ideally, he should have written one sentence here, second sentence, third, fourth, and fifth. That would have been a much better response. So there is a bit of a confusion as far as the structure is concerned. I hope this video helps you in writing task 1 more correctly, and you can be in touch with me at ELTEC IELTS@gmail.com. Thank you for watching the video.